Have you ever wished you could go behind the scenes with your favorite Hollywood stars?
This was probably the most free I could ever be in a movie.
Yeah.
Variety Studio invites you to listen in as today's top actors discuss their craft.
How often does a director come to you and say, take more time with this?
And I just knew at that moment, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to be an actor.
Yeah.
With Tom Hanks and Renee Zellweger, Brad Pitt and Adam Sandler, and Awkwafina and Taron Egerton. Welcome to Variety Studio Actors on Actors. I'm Ramin Satuda. In this episode, we'll revisit some of the most talked about performances of the year. First up, Tom Hanks and Renee Zellweger are earning rave reviews for their portraits of real-life legends. Two-time Oscar winner Tom Hanks channels the warmth and compassion of children's television host Fred Rogers, or Mr. Rogers to most of us, in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
We are trying to give children positive ways to deal with their feelings.
In Judy, Oscar winner Renee Zellweger captures the fragility and fears of Judy Garland as she embarks upon a set of London performances in the final year of her life.
They hound people in this world. Anybody who's different. They can't stand it.
What is the first thing you do when, the legend is like playing Judy Garland, it's like playing Elvis, or, it's like playing John Lennon or something. What's the first thing you do?
Well, there's a lot of material.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
You watch everything.
You watch
right?
everything. All of her, her body of work.
Did you have an overabundance of information you had to sift through?
Well, you try to be judicious about what it is that you take as fact.
Right.
Consider the source.
Right.
So there was a lot of contradictory information, and a lot of it was, it seemed like, oh, the truth is in here somewhere, but that's not it.
Right.
It sort of lies in between these bits of information. And there are so many biographies out there of people who claim to have known her that don't get mentioned in the biographies of the people, or the autobiographies rather, of the people who we know knew her from public record, or because it's a familial connection,
You look at that output prior to The Wizard of Oz, and she had already worked herself into a puddle in that backbreaking kind of quick, like all those big musical numbers for those Andy Hardy movies and everything else that she did. And how old was she when she made
Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
She was 16, wasn't she? 15 or 16?
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, she was just starting to, her body was just starting to change, and I think that one of the tools that they used to keep her slim, besides binding her, and trying to keep her weight down, because they didn't want her to be voluptuous, because they had finally found a way to market her as the girl next door, and God forbid that Dorothy be sexy, So they bound her and kept her, her weight down.
I was disappointed that
drugs.
we didn't get to see you recreate moments like from the Harvey Girls or Meet Me in St. Louis or these other ones where she had, this is from what the reading that I did, was she had that kind of like negative self-image that she wasn't the prettiest woman on camera, and yet she's the only one you look at.
I know, she's just ethereal, wasn't she? She was so beautiful. It's impossible to imagine that she had that, that she'd been broken down to where she couldn't see it.
The expression that she was able to put into what was, I'm guessing, was pre-recorded tracks. The songs were all pre-recorded somehow.
In the MGM
in
movies?
the MGM days,
Yeah, she talks about that. Yeah, that they would go in the morning and lay down the tracks. And I heard that she did something like 28 takes of Man That Got Away until she could recognize that everybody in the room was feeling it the way she was feeling it. And then she was happy.
But then the recreation of that on camera to a playback in which you're not really impacting the soundtrack, because you are essentially, you're miming or mimicking or recreating something. But her eyes and her face and the emotion that you put into that is, I wouldn't know how to do that.
I did know that Rupert wanted to establish the story in a way that you would understand where she was in terms of her ability to access her instrument at that time. So you wouldn't be quite sure whether or not she was going to succeed. He wanted to set that up so that it seemed a precarious moment when she stepped onto the stage.
When you finally sang, and the fireworks go off, and everybody who's watching the movie has to collect the back of their head because you've blown them away so much. Those weren't pre-recorded songs. Did you do you were recording those live?
Yes.
And did you do them all in a row because of the block shooting? Were you always in that space?
No, we could do a couple numbers a day.